And welcome. We are continuing our work on our game engine and editor, and today we are continuing for the probably, I think, third or even fourth session in a row with our very difficult to handle drop-down menus. And yeah, let's see how we can do that, and if we can solve all the issues that we are currently having here. So let me quickly check. Okay, probably let's start with where we are at the moment, and I think I can make this a little bit. We can fine-tune this here. Okay, I think this is okay. Can maybe make it a little bit smaller. I just want you to see also the bottom of the screen. Okay, I think here we go. Yeah, now I think that's better for you. Okay. And let's probably also turn up the size of the font. And yeah, let's go to probably 14. I think that's a good compromise, so you can see better, and I can also still read a bit of the code. So let's just see where we are. Let's see where the problems are at the moment. So this is currently the state of the editor, and what we are seeing here is that we can actually now open up drop-down menus. So I solved the problem from last time, and I will probably also show you the code, what was done here. And after getting you up to speed again, we will very likely be working on the actual scanning of the mouse in terms of these drop-down menu items. So as you see, nothing is happening. We do not get any indication where we are hovering, and we also would not be able to click on something and something happening. There's even a second problem that I see now, which is that the modality of this drop down is currently not correctly handled, because you saw that when I clicked here, I actually kind of clicked through the dialog or this drop down rectangle, and I essentially hit something beneath this rectangle, which is of course not what you would want to see, right? So this is also something we need to address. So we need to be fully aware of the C layer of all these different items here, and if the mouse is clicked over this top level item here, we should not propagate the event to the layers below. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So it doesn't make sense, and it's just not it's not right, it's not good, it doesn't feel good. And yeah, okay, one by one, but I think with what we will start with is the actual hovering. So I started already off screen and off stream with that, and I think it will continue, and also quickly show you how the actual drop down rendering is generally done. Okay, interesting. It took a long time to stop stop the app here. Okay. So the rendering of the actual drop down menu is done in a specific function here. It's called, very fittingly, render drop down overlays. And we are now, for the moment, just passing in the editor state, and the width and the height is essentially set to 0 here, as you can see. And what is actually drawn here is from a global central list of active dropdowns. As I mentioned already, sometimes is that I want to have this in a way, like built in a way that you can also have more than one drop-down menu. So you might also have context menus and stuff like that. So I will just put this in a list, and then I will iterate through this list, so I know every active drop-down menu, and then I will render it. So what do we render? We render essentially a rectangle, and the rectangle must have a specific size, and the size is not any size, so it is depending on the contents of the menu. And so what we're currently doing is we're not really depending on that, but this will be one of the next steps. But that should be quite easy, because for example, the height of the rectangle will just be kind of like the size per menu item, the size per line, and we just multiply it by the number of items. So if I have 5 items with a height of 20 pixels each, and I have these 5 menu items, so the overall space that they will at least need is 100 pixels. Then we might add just some margin and some padding, and that should be all that we need. Okay, good. So yeah, the rendering is just the standard affair. We just rendered the rectangle here. Currently we give it a fixed size essentially, but yeah, we will later change that. And then after we have rendered this background rectangle, so the user has a good indication of where the dropdown is, we render the actual menu items. And the menu items are quite nicely stored in a list within the dropdown item itself. So this is, yeah, I think quite easy to understand, I hope. And yeah, so currently what is missing is the actual hovering of the items. So I commented that out because yeah, some parts are still missing for that. But I think in today's stream, which will be a little bit of the shorter side, so it is planned to be 1.5 hours. But I think we will hopefully come to that point as well. Okay. Yeah, and then I just render each menu item. The text of the menu item is then just rendered, and that's quite standard fare. And so and every drop-down item or every drop-down menu is rendered into its own frame buffer, and then that frame buffer is copied over to the main screen essentially. So okay, then I would say we continue with recognizing which item is actually selected, and as I said, I already started with that. So let's look at this function that I've prepared here. It's called check dropdown menu items. As it says, it checks all the menu items of a specific dropdown. Let's dropdown rectangle for hovering and clicking. Okay, so this is then how we can actually activate a specific menu item. And as you can see, I have prepared a few logging lines here already, so that I can compare, okay, what is the current mouse coordinates and how do they compare to the actual global screen coordinates of each menu item, and when it should actually fit, but why it does not fit and stuff like that. So let's probably check how we do that. And we can then see a nice overview of the actual coordinates. Okay, so let's see what's happening. The console is open, that's good. And now you can see we have all kind of outputs. And now the problem is currently, although the mouse is over the item 1, it is not recognized as item 1. It's only recognized as item 1 here when we're actually already below. So it seems the offset is kind of wrong, because now here I'm at item 2. And now I'm out of item 2. So it seems like it's just like the offset is completely wrong. So it's probably, so if this is the offset, we should probably put it down minus 32. It seems like it's probably offset by the complete top menu item, by the complete top menu bar, sorry. Because that has a height of 32 pixels, and maybe this is the problem here. Yeah, but I need the debug version and not the retail version. Okay, so now it's also wrong, because now this is too much. Now it's item 2 already. Now it's gone. This is item 1, item 2. Okay, so this is also not correct. But let's not do some guesswork here. Let's try to understand what the actual correct values would be here. So I think the idea is that we should probably just put the global coordinates into each of these menu items, and then we can most easily check which of them are currently under the mouse. And let's probably also just go here with a debug breakpoint, and we will just look into it like directly. Okay, so let's see. Good. So the virtual, the vertical offset is now 32, which actually doesn't sound wrong. I mean, that's perfectly fine. So let's look at the first drop of the first menu item. What is a bounding box? Okay, yeah, the first time around it's always 0, 0, but that's fine because we just need to render it once. So that's fine, okay? So, but now we should have something, yeah, so we have. So top is 12. So that would mean it would be 32 plus 12, so that is 48. So what is the mouse Y? So the mouse Y is 124, which is definitely below that. And the bottom is 40. And let's also check if that even is true. I think the problem is that these coordinates are just wrong. I mean, I started to debug this already before, and it's still wrong. I think the top value might be okay. So the top value is 12. But the bottom with 40, I think it's just not okay. So this would be item 1. I mean, let's just, and let's also have left and right, but I think this will not be the problem. So the left is 4 and right is 49. Okay, but we have 12 to 40 from top to bottom. Okay, so let's see. I think we can already change this here to go into the function where it says render dropdown actually, because this is where these coordinates come from. And we'll now see where we put this render bounding box here. Here we fill it out. So the render bounding box has now these values. Okay, so at least these are consistent. Good. So how do they come to pass? Why are they what they are? Why are they what they are? So we have the left value. I think the left value is okay. It's just the horizontal offset, and the horizontal offset is horizontal offset is 8. Horizontal offset is 8. And we reduce it by the margin. Okay, that's fine. So the vertical offset is now 16. Why is that 16? I feel that I think we're kind of are we one off? Oh, yeah, no, okay, so we start 16 down. I think I would like to see the pure. Probably see the pure frame buffer contents in RenderDoc for that, because 16 sounds a little bit much actually, but that's what we do. And then we say, well, the size is 24. I mean, we could probably reduce it, but it looked not so bad, so we can keep that. So it's 16. So 16 is at any time the offset here. Okay, let's see. Then right seemed correct, and the bottom is just the vertical offset plus 24, which is not totally stupid. Yeah, I mean, let's just probably let it run a bit, and we just check here with our mouse statistics. So here, I mean, if this is where it starts, is at 32. I mean, that makes sense. So where does item 1 start? I mean, it ends at 49, 50. So this is just completely wrong here. And let's say it starts here at it starts at 37. I mean, it's not really. Yeah, no, we need to fire up RenderDoc, and we need to do this in a more controlled way. Let's just see how this looks like. Okay. Now let's look at this actual rendering here. So how far away are we from the top here? So this is essentially just 6 pixels from the top. 5 or 6 doesn't really matter, and here we are at 15. So this is around, it's really only around 10 pixels high. Okay, so I would argue, I mean, for some reason it doesn't really make sense. Oh, the 16, so I guess it's probably, so this is 16 plus 24, right? Because it's 40. Okay, this is 16 here. Yeah. Okay, so we start 16. but okay, I think we need to compensate this. Okay, yeah, we need to compensate this by setting the vertical offset minus 16 actually, and probably even minus 20, and we will offset this minus 20 plus I think we can actually just say plus 4. So we just we add a little bit of margin to the bottom, and that's it. Let's see how that works. I think it could work now, but we must bring this down. Item 1, no item, item 1, item 1, item 1, item 2, item 2, item 2. Alright, no item. Yeah, I mean, it's actually fine. Okay, so now to render some indication, we need something else. We need probably the gray one. Gray underscore BG. Gray underscore BG. And then we do what? We say, well, it's not the current hover menu item. I mean, I think what we could do is that we say there is a current drop over menu item, because there can only be ever one, I guess, actually, right? So I think that could work. So where is the current hover menu item? And we say it is a null pointer. Now we go back to the check drop down clearing state. No. Check menu inputs, because here we are. No, but we must go here. Exactly. Check drop down menu items. This is what we want, because here we will now say editor state current hover drop down menu item equals menu item. And let's try it out. Let's try it out. It's nothing happening really, but I mean, let's see if we go here and then render the drop down overlays. Let's grab some water. And I think so let's see. Okay. So when we are now rendering the menu items, why would that not work? Because probably the offsets are wrong. So let's check that. So the menu item itself has a world matrix of the H offset. So the H offset, no, I would say the H offset is fine. And the Y value is, of course, the V offset. And it is, okay, it might be below even. So if this is the rect and this is the text, so the text is at 0.45. I think the rect behind is at 0.5, so this must be at 0.42, for example. Just somewhere in between the text and the rectangle in the background. Let's see, maybe. Let's just see if you actually come here, because then it's more a question of actual rendering. Yeah, I mean, okay, so we go here and the menu item is menu item 1. So far so good. And we're also here. Okay. And it should also be rendered. Okay. Oh yeah, okay, maybe we see something. It doesn't look good. Not at all, but getting there. Yeah, I mean, it's better than nothing. It's definitely not good. So the interesting thing is, if the text is at 0.45, yeah, then it must be behind 0.7. I'm also not happy with the width. The hover width is not correct. The hover width is the text item width. Yeah, I mean, it's not totally stupid. Oh, I don't know. And what is the height? The height is 20. Okay, this is too much. Let's say it's 24. Maybe 24 is fine. The hover width seems so small. I think we could probably, I mean, the hover width should just be essentially the width of the whole drop down. It must be the drop down width. Yeah, that's what we'll do. The hover width is actually the drop down width. I think that looks much better. I think this looks much better. Yeah, it's getting there. I don't like the offset now. I think we will change the offset, and also we have to push it up a little bit. Just looking out of the window, there's a thunderstorm coming in. Very nice. So if we hear some thunders, I think they're coming in now. If something sounds like a thunderstorm, well, then it is. That's because it is a thunderstorm then. So let us change that a bit. So the virtual offset, I want to offset it by 4 now. And the H offset is actually not what I want, probably. Yeah, the H offset is not what I want. I just want to have it starting flush on the left side. yeah, I would say we do not win any design prizes, but it's better than nothing. Okay, then let's do an action here. Check drop down menu items, and we can reuse this from here. So if we are over a menu item and the mouse was clicked and the menu item has an action, the action should be run, should be executed. Okay, good. So what we will do now is we will add an action to that. Can we give an action directly here? I think we can. Import model import. Yeah, so the last thing is the action. Okay, so we will now just put in a lambda here. Why not? I think that should work. It's an input model action. Okay, yeah, but it gets an editor state. Okay, that's fine. Okay, it gets the editor state. Editor state, and now I think function has two parameters called the free arguments, but okay. Then there's a render bounding box. Yeah, so now import model action. What is this now? What is this now? Oh, that's always so. Okay, yeah, that doesn't totally not make sense, but no, that should actually work, right? Yeah, it does. Okay, cool. Okay, because now we will just do something very, very simple. Another thunderstorm is coming. Okay, I think I will close everything. So we'll just write that out as a debug line here, and that's essentially it. And item 2 will just not have an action. That's also fine. But we should now see action of item 1. No. I'm not sure if it compiled now this version. I think I had an overlap in my change here. Let's just try to build it again. And let's check. Yeah, I mean, the problem is I have so much output here. This is a good example of too much noise in the log. It's just totally useless now. Just get rid of that. Try it again. ret, whatever ret. Oh my god, what did I do? What did I do? Yeah, I mean that's fine, but yeah, okay. Come on. Come on. Okay. Much better. No, nothing's happening. Then let's see if we come here. Let's see if we come here. Yeah, I mean that's actually a good sign. So if we now enter this function, okay, the function is not called, but let's say dd1. Because I think it should work actually, right? Yeah. Okay. So far, so good. But is it okay? No. Okay, maybe I was not in debug mode or some stupid like that, because it actually seems to work quite well. Item 2, there is just no action, and anyway we click through, but let's just ignore that. Item 1, item 1. I mean, I think very basically it is working. Very good. We give ourselves a thumbs up. That's what we do. That's what we do. So, just a quick sanity check if we broke anything. Oh. There was a debug point, there was a breakpoint somewhere, but it's fine. Okay. Good. So far, so good. Item 1. Cool. Okay, so now we need to think about this clicking through. I'm not sure if I like that. I mean, of course I don't like it. The question is more, is this a quick fix or not? Probably not, but anyway, let's think it through. So we have the notion of a drop-down menu. I would consider a drop-down menu if it is active, so if it is rendered, then we can say that this is kind of like a modal window. In that it is the only source of gaining focus, right? Or put it another way, as long as the click is happening over such a drop down, this should kind of consume this mouse click event essentially. This is probably a better term. So normally how systems do this, you have this kind of hierarchy where the event trickles down from the first UI element to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. But only if none of those UI items actually declares that it has used this click event. Because only then should it fall through. If one of those elements declares, hey, I've actually already used this click, it should normally not be passed on. So we should handle it in this manner. Yeah, then let's see. Hey Compa, how you doing? Continuing with your C++ adventures, I guess. hopefully successful. So yeah, I think if we have essentially one click over the drop down, I think it's fine. Yeah, C++ does that. It does it. Does it a lot. It annoyed me also. Maybe we should switch to assembler, but I guess that would annoy us even more. So let's see, when we say check drop down clearing state, no, check drop down menu items, that's what you want to do. We can declare, do we declare? Yeah. I think what we will do is really just I mean, this depends now. This depends on the sequence. So if we are the first to be sure to get the event, I mean, we can kind of consume it. But if we're not the first, that wouldn't work that way, right? It's also not such a good idea. I mean, maybe we cannot help to really make a more sophisticated framework. I just wanted to avoid it. But we'll probably need a little bit more sophistication here, very likely. It seems, I think it's not avoidable because we need some kind of fixed hierarchy now where the UI click events follow a certain path. I think we can probably not avoid this. I guess. Yeah. Some ideas come to mind, but really depends how I want to go further with this. This is the question. Because if we look here, I mean, it depends. Because if the event is in any way first checked by the game object, it wouldn't help, but this game object tree doesn't help if I swallow it here. If I declare it used, it doesn't even make a difference, right? So yeah, that's kind of bad news because that means probably that we need a complete different object hierarchy here, which I do not want to have now. Yeah, that's the question. I mean, for now, I could kind of just do a specific sequence. And it would work for now, and that would follow our minimalism credo. Yeah, I'm not totally sure. I mean, let's see. If you say do frame, how do we do this? In do frame, we check all the game object tree inputs. I mean, now it would even be later. Okay, so that would kind of even make sense. But how would we do that? I'm just trying to see how other IDEs do that actually. So, I mean, when I'm clicking here, yeah, I just want to find something that doesn't make anything stupid. Yeah, whatever, recent files. Then it closes down. Okay, anyway, this is something that I could do as well, or I should do on clicking. Yeah, I mean, what I could do now is just I could create a new function which essentially says deactivate click for this frame. And I mean, we could just see if that even works. I mean, that would be a super quick and cheeky move, but yeah, I mean, we could do it probably. So that means we don't only run the action, but we also consume the event. So we say mouse left click consumed, and we will create this function somewhere near here. I would suggest it's a void function, and when, I mean, does it consume left click? So and we will create this function in our Windows code. We'll create it here, and what we will do here is really just say left button down is false, left button up is false. Essentially just reset everything, but not consume, but consume. Consume left click. Yeah. And this is an external function. Simple as that. And now it should work. I mean, let's just see if this super quick and dirty measure has helped. I had this once. Why? I don't remember what was the issue there. Every time I put something in here, this is happening. I have no idea why. I always forget from one time to the next what the problem here was. What was the problem? Mouse left click consumed. I mean, probably it's just because we need to put it here. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Or it's even engine age, is it? So mouse left click, where is that actually defined? Or is it also just necessary to have this here? No, there's actually no external function here, right? Mouse left, no, it's not here. Is it here? Yeah, it's here. So probably that helps. I hope so. So let's see what has happened now. Item 1 is good. Still kicking through, so that does not help at all. So let's consume that. But it's good, yeah. Adding some quality of life features is always good. I mean, it's, yeah. But did it not run well? Are you not happy? Or did you expect more progress, and then C++ bite you in the butt? Because that can happen. It does all the time here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so maybe you did not, I mean, maybe you did not include the correct header file, or because normally GCC should all the files, or you did not name the correct file if it's in a separate file. I mean, it's interesting if it's, yeah. But this is a typical issue that I mean, I also had it now here. It did not see my function, for example. Yeah, so I had to edit it in a specific header file, and then it was seen by the compiler. But yeah, sometimes it's not part of your compilation command line. If it's in a separate file, it's easy forgotten. Yeah, and then sometimes it's just hard to track down which header files are included and stuff like that. Yeah, this is a pain in the ass. So, but this is a big part of programming, let me tell you. These kind of issues. Probably it will be better soon in case you want to program with AI. Probably that's anyway. Maybe humans do not program so much in the future anyway. So then these kind of issues are gone, but there will be other issues then. So let me see, why wouldn't that work? So if I say check the game object tree, okay, I mean that's fine. But the mouse left click, what does it do? Is okay, so it checks for the left button up. But if the left button up is already set to false, I mean, why would that be the case then, right? Why would that be the case? This is interesting. Yeah, I think that's good advice. I also try to kind of not use it at all as much as possible. I think it keeps you more fit. It keeps you on your toe. But in case AI gets stronger and stronger, probably humans will no longer program. That's just the reality. Yeah, it's just because humans just make too many errors. So it might just be the case. I hate it. I don't like this. I don't like this development, but it could happen. I mean, nobody really knows, but it could happen. Yeah. So that's why I'm enjoying programming while we are still doing it as humans. So let's see. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why it's clever not to rely on it. I fully agree. I also don't do it because I think you get slower. I think you get more kind of, yeah, I don't want to say the word stupid because it's not really what I want to say, but it's more like I think you get so used to always let AI do so many things for you that you just kind of, yeah, you use your sharpness, right? So I'm just trying to be real, and I see a reality where probably in some years it's not a job anymore anyway. So, but I mean, I don't know, maybe, I hope not actually. I would like to do it until I die, but I don't know. Let's see. I think nobody can really tell. I mean, I hope not, but maybe. Um, yeah, I mean, there are just some use cases where it can be helpful to kind of, yeah. It can also be helpful to learn new concepts, right? I think where the AI chat model in general works very well and it has a good use, I believe, is like it is like a interactive tutor. It's like someone can explain you things. I mean, although it's not error free or something, but it's nicer, and I think you can use it to learn things. Yeah, it's not just let it create something for you, but just to discuss with it and let it explain things, and then you can ask back. And although it has some errors, normally in these kind of things, it's quite good. It's quite capable, and it can easily also research the internet, and it can also give you good summaries of libraries, of specifications, just as a first kind of entry. And I think this is really a good use case. I mean, that makes sense. I'm just against letting it create programs or also even parts of programs, because that's the fun that I do it actually, right? So if it's just created, I mean, you get an end product. If it works or not, it's another question. But where's the processing for me? It's just not there. Then I am welcome. So I'm not against AI or something. Yeah, I mean, I'm also trying to live in reality, and I mean, it's there anyway. It will never go away. But it's just like I I love programming so much that I just try to kind of keep it the manual work that it is currently. I kind of like to keep it for myself. And anyway, I mean, you can always, if you do it as a hobby or if you do it for art, I mean, nobody will probably uh, kind of not let you program anymore. That's not what I mean. But it's just kind of maybe, I hope not, as I said, maybe going away as a profession, but future will tell anyway. Yeah. No, no need to worry today, because I think today it's not that far away. So yeah, yeah. Also, yeah, and I think sometimes it's kind of what I call it, like it's a rather intelligent rubber duck. I think it's really like a and even if it has some errors, but you all know the idea that you just, when you talk out an idea loud, you spell it out. It already helps, even if you talk it to a rubber duck, which obviously cannot program. Um, and in that sense, it's just very good to bounce off kind of ideas often. So in when you are searching for a strange bug, you type it in, and I think the act of typing it in already kind of probably structures your thoughts quite a bit. And then there is even some response from an AI, which, even if it's kind of left field and if it's kind of like coming from a stupid idea, sometimes it even gives you still some kind of stimulus and some kind of input that is useful. And sometimes it just happens to know the issue anyway, and it can really help you. And although I think this is, for me, is already kind of a case where I try also not to rely too much on it, because I think you can get reliant on this feature also much, and I think your ability to think through the code also suffers from that, I guess, because I think our human brain is very much about practicing and repetition. And I think if you're just not used to think hard about stuff, I think you lose that ability a bit, or a lot, I guess. On the other hand, if someone is sitting behind you and you have a very, very high degree of stress in terms of the delivery date or something, what else can you do essentially? Well, I mean, if you lose your job, or you have to ask probably the AI. So it begins, I guess, right? So we are kind of also forced in a professional way to use it. I mean, here on my free project, here on my hobby project, I can do what I want, and I can spend a year and finding and not finding a bug. It's still annoying probably for myself and the audience, but it's, of course, but yeah. So while we are speaking of debugging, let's continue debugging. So let's see. So the problem is currently for everyone joining. So the as you can see, we have now an action item working, and we have an action linked to the menu item. That's all fine. But the problem is if I click here, it's still, the click is kind of going through to the layer below, which should just not happen, right? So the interesting thing is really why there is why this is still happening, because actually I tried to suppress this already, but nevertheless it's happening. So it's the same as if I click here. It seems like, which makes sense because now I'm essentially on the position of this enemy 1 item, but obviously this should be kind of treated like a modal dialog, so this should never go through. So my quick and dirty fix obviously did not work, but I'm not fully understanding why it does not work, and I like to understand this. So let me quickly check why that would be the case. Yes, I did him. Yes, I did. I think I did it on Saturday, was it? So I did it essentially 5 minutes after you added me, after you gave me your name. Yeah, it was me. Yep, that was me. I mean, unless someone else did it as well, but I did it like on Saturday, probably like around midnight or something. It was, I think, at least my time, probably 1 hour earlier than for you. Okay, let's see. I mean, why am I not getting here? Am I getting here now? It's interesting. Sure. No, it's fine. Yeah. So why am I not? Where does this come from? Actually, it's really interesting. Where does this come from? Yeah, I mean, I'm here, of course. That makes sense. Because, okay, on this level, yeah. Okay, I mean, here I must hover, right? I must be already hovering to go here. I don't know why I'm not hitting this breakpoint here. This is really strange. So this is the visible game object tree items. This is the hover check. I mean, it should definitely be here. That's interesting. This even looks like I'm on a different compiled version. Can it be? No, it looks like I'm 1 or 2 lines off. Strange. So let's try again. So current hover expander. Yeah, okay, let's just say it's fine. I mean, I'm now wondering why we have it so often here. That's also not what I expect, but okay. Okay, interesting. So Im, did you also continue work on your on the crosshair genie, or is it more like a future and midterm project? I was not sure because it sounded like you were actually planning to do a refresh, right? But that was probably more in the future. I can imagine. I mean, I'm not even sure what I'm doing here. So. Yeah, it's that's funny. I mean, it's just okay. Okay. Oh my god, I don't even understand my own code, but I guess that can happen. Ah, okay, no, this is the code for just the expands icons, right? Okay, this might just be of the actual tree items. Okay, probably I'm here. No, I still don't fully get it. I'm confused. Now I'm here. Ah, okay, because it's I think I understand what what I did. I think I'm only checking it here, right? Yeah. I mean, so far so good, but that means that okay, I think here is the actual code, right? Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, so if we have a Harvard game object which is bigger than -1, then yeah, then it is essentially a valid item. I see. Okie dokie. So now at the left mouse click says what is the up state of the button, and the bottom up is false currently, which is fine because I didn't really click. Okay, that's fine. And now I would just not go out here. But now the interesting thing is if I go here, if I do this and I click here, so what is happening? So obviously the mouse left click must still have been if mouse left click, so it is really just mouse up, left button up is true. Why would that still be true? Okay, let's see when we go here and who changes this. So okay, yeah, so it's already left button up, false. Okay, and now, but if I click here now, something. Could that? Oh, I think what? Okay, I think I see the problem, because if I do not click on an item, I think I do not reset the actual mouse state. That could be the problem. Render. Can I open? So check drop down menu items. This is what I wanted. No, but actually. Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, yeah, I see. I would actually need to do if yeah, I think I see. Yeah. I was just kind of curious because yeah, I wasn't sure, because Compa, I think, who is also still joining us, he has joined a few times already, and he's also working on some project in C++. It's a terminal, and he just reported that he had a lot of annoyances with C++, and I thought I will also ask you if you also have some some war and battle stories to tell, but yeah, but yeah, if you focus on 3D stuff, I guess it needs all your attention anyway. So, um, so I think I need to just in general I need to reset the mouse here. Although it doesn't really genuinely feel good what I'm doing here now, I think it's kind of quick and dirty solutions which will not probably help me, but still I want to explore how far it takes me. Still trying to ride on the minimalist train, but yeah, the more complex UI features now get to me. Maybe, as I already said, maybe a little bit more architectural sophistication is now called for. Let's see. We will find out very soon, I guess. So what I wanted to say, if we had a mouse left click and we have been over our drop down menu, I will actually consume the click immediately. I mean, that probably does fix the problem now, although I'm anyway not happy. Oh yeah. Oh my god, error messages and templates in C++. Yeah, that's a whole universe. I think you could even write a whole movie about this. um, yeah, I mean, that's true. Sometimes you I know that feeling very well. Sometimes you solve something without, you couldn't probably in that moment fully explain it analytically to someone else, like why it would really work. I mean, you have this kind of gut feeling that it works, and it does, but it's, yeah. So, but Compa, what was the actual issue? So, did you just miss an include, or did you miss to put the header file into the command line item or into your GCC command execution, or what was it? So, subcommand failed. What is that? Ah, okay, something stupid. Ah, okay. I mean, that's a bummer. I mean, yeah. Sometimes you have this kind of name shadowing, and you have this, yeah, where it's because the compile and also especially the linker tends to take the first symbol that it finds in its kind of pool of source files and header files, and when so it searches for something, and when it finds the first best thing it finds, it just uses it. But then further down the line, it may just then stumble. Yeah, I know that. That's a ridiculously stupid error to find also, right? It's not to make, because you can make it easily, but sometimes, yeah, it can be really really painful. Okay, so that is already, I think, good now. And let's see if this helped. I think it helped. Yeah, I think it actually helped. But the question is, can we still do the item 1? Yes, I think we can. Yeah, that's good. Item 2 just doesn't have an action, and this does not happen anymore. Yeah, cool. Okay. Hey, but half an hour is not that bad. I guess you had also other problems, but yeah, I mean, it's just a stupid little thing, right? I mean, you don't want to spend any time with that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The problem with this Windows APIs is, I think it's literally from 1981 or whatever. I don't know. I mean, parts of it, and it's C, as Im says, and it's okay. There were not even technical namespaces possible, and yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I would lie to you if I would say even after 20 years of programming that doesn't happen. So it's still happening because it's probably the kind of issues which you have to debug for 2 or 4 hours that they change. It's maybe not more simple things that a more experienced person gets right probably from the start, but especially then if you go into graphics programming, if you go into more complicated Windows programming, you have kind of you are a part of this rather complex and complicated environment which you don't have fully under your control. And there is DirectX, or there is OpenGL, and they play with the operating system, and it's sometimes you just feel like a small cog in the wheel, and you feel kind of like a victim because what did I do wrong? But it just doesn't work, and this is really, really hard to debug as well. So, yeah, I think it's part of developing, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you, but there is also kind of this category of, let's call it, build and compilation errors, right? Where you just don't get the freaking thing to build, even, and that's also not always easy. And especially as you mentioned, also template errors. I mean, whoever has seen these 5 kilometer long super cryptic template errors in C++ knows that these are not so easy to decipher if you're not very, very experienced in that, right? So exactly, yeah, that's why I also use RenderDoc quite a lot, as you see here on the channel, um, because sometimes that's the last resort. Sometimes what I also do is in graphics programming, and I heard a lot of people actually do it, also super professionals, like you debug with your shader, right? So you write specific color codes in your shader so that because then this is very useful because you really see it executed through the whole pipeline. And I mean, if you write a red value in there, for some reason you don't see this red, I mean, well, okay, it gives you some kind of indication, well, it's absolutely, or it's obviously not doing what I supposed it to do. It's because it must be red, but if it's not, so some things like that. And I mean, this is normally I do that when I'm already very, very desperate. But sometimes it's kind of the only way to do, because you cannot really debug the GPU, right? I mean, not in real time, not easily, at least not to my knowledge. So, or not yet. So exactly, and especially um, if you have a quite complicated rendering pipeline where probably there is, you render into one frame buffer, and then you read it back and you do some kind of whatever um, special effect on that. You make some blurring and stuff like that, and sometimes just you're just not totally sure, is the sequence actually right now, or is every frame buffer used in the correct way? Like, is it even processed or not? Because sometimes it's just wrong. I mean, you just don't see the blurring as you would expect it, but you can, if you just read in C++ code, which calls OpenGL, it's not so easy to decipher, yeah, well, here is the problem. And then you can kind of step by step say, well, in that frame buffer, I will just dump in blue or whatever, and then you can really see which layer provides which kind of color, and it can be eye-opening also for lighting and for shadowing, also for normal mapping. For example, you just render out the normals directly, the normals as colors, because then you say, okay, well, if it's on the left side, it will be black because it will be the X value will be negative, but everything on the right must be red essentially because it's bigger than 1. And if it's this is kind of these axioms, and if they are not true, then you say, well, something must be completely messed up because I see some other color. So yeah, that's really helpful. And yeah, and in terms of what Compass said, in terms of linking assembly with your C++ program, yeah, that's fun, right? So because you then have to really tell the linker very precisely very often. I mean, it depends on how you do it. I think you can, if you have already, if the assembler file is already in an object format, you can just link it easily. But if you have a very specific way of which symbol you call in which way, then there's even the name mangling. The symbols are called differently. They are looking differently in C++. C is much easier in that regard, to be honest, as well. Yeah, there's a lot of room for fun, quote unquote fun, to be had. Yeah, in general, just linking assembly, especially if you are in a, let's say you are in a, whatever I call it, a headless environment. So you're doing operating system development, for example, and it's just like there's no standard libraries in between or something, and you just have, for example, maybe you have just a raw machine language program. Actually, I mean, you wrote it in assembler, but you already assembled it, right? So it is already a binary, and then you just know that at address whatever hex 3000 that this is your main entry point, whatever. And then, so to have an executable program, you still need to tell the linker, well, you have to go into this address and stuff like that. And then it depends which memory model do you have. Are you not in protective mode? Are you already in protective mode? Are you in long 64-bit mode? And this is, yeah, you learn a lot. Let's put it that way. Just by linking the programs, you learn a lot about how actually does the binary then look like in memory, and how can function calls be made from assembly to C code and stuff like that. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And to do the render target is also my first natural thing to go. Also for every separate frame buffer, okay, I clear it to green, and then I copy this whole frame buffer to a rectangle on the screen, and I expect to see this. And if not, well, then already something totally off, right? So yeah. Yeah, and I mean the linker and also those linker scripts, I mean, they are a universe in themselves. And especially if you, I mean, I always felt if you do very, very low level, like talking of operating system development, if you have a custom linker script, you can really be very fine-grained in how you design your binary to be your final binary, your composed binary to look like. And I actually did not find a way around that. I found that I can use the shortcuts on the GCC command line more in a more managed world when I'm already in a working Linux operating system, which is probably anyway 90% of the case. But if you do the really nasty stuff and write your own operating system or something like that, I felt that's where I always needed the linker scripts very much as well. Yeah, I mean, I really read it. It's not so long ago. I read it, or maybe I saw it in a video. I don't know, or both. That people also kind of recommend to do this graphical debugging, essentially, right? And just try to. I mean, it's all about debugging and kind of like asserting. It's also a kind of assertion, right? Because you normally have a theory. I mean, you think, well, I think this color should be darker because it should be in shadow, right? Or it should be much, much lighter because I have a spotlight here and I expect it to be a bright red and not a dark red. So you always know what you expect, and then, yeah, just kind of force it in the most simple way. So at least the shader then, because the shader can also get complicated, right? Because you can have sub modules in your shader and stuff like that, and you can probably not even catch the right code that you expect. And very often for me that was the case, that I was just, yeah, it was kind of selecting the wrong branch, because in shaders I normally try to avoid if statements. As we know, they cannot be easily parallelized and stuff like that. So if you kind of simplify and you kind of synthesize the shader down to, well, it's always red, forget everything else. If it then works, well, you know, okay, it must be somewhere in the shader, right? Because it seems like the shader is called, and what it writes out is visible or something. It's not hidden or not rejected somewhere. It's good. It's a good thing to do. Yeah, I've also tried that. Yeah, kind of that you probably mean that you then also read back, I guess, the texture from memory, and you kind of analyze it. Yeah, I think both is fine. I also sometimes kind of created a, you could call it probably a procedural texture, which has a certain characteristic, so to say, and I think it's one level up. Um, yeah, but I think this is also what I think is the fun part about this whole graphics programming, because it's still kind of like it's this black box, which is very annoying because you cannot really just debug and step through the GPU. Also for some kind of understandable reasons, because it's so highly parallelized and stuff like that. Um, so which of the 1000 cores would you now debug on, essentially? But okay, if you have the assumption that every core does the same thing, it probably doesn't even matter. But yeah, I guess it's just super not easy to do. Um, but yeah, but this also makes it. I mean, this makes it kind of interesting because you have to search for creative solutions. Very much so. On the other hand, sometimes you feel like completely lost because it's like, okay, I would like to peek into it, I would like to look into it, I would like to step it through, but it feels like the Stone Age. And now you have to resort to some specific debug textures or writing out bright colors. It just feels like, yeah, it's not the right tool set. Sometimes you feel like, oh God. And I can tell you, Compo, sometimes I debug such things for 8 hours or 2 days. And it's just like you really have to be very inventive. And yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible and wonderful at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that this would really be cool, and yeah, if you find a if you have a good breakthrough on that, like really having this kind of graphical things like really easily testable and not conflicting with the, let's call it, the production runtime code, I would be interested. Yeah, so you might want to share that maybe, because it's really it's interesting, and I have a very old book about XNA programming, which is really, yeah, it's no longer a thing. But the guy that wrote it is also had a very interesting approach, and he was also kind of, he called it unit testing, and it was quite revolutionary. And I've actually never read about this in a graphics or game programming book since ever since. So it was very interesting, and yeah, he also used kind of yeah, mock-ups and stubs, and still while rendering in real time actually the game, but he had it so nicely composed in these different small little pieces that really felt a lot like running a unit test. And I, yeah, found it interesting. He used some C sharp, also language technologies, and some kind of whatever delegates, what they're called, to kind of do some trickery at runtime to run a test probably once, but and if the assertion fails, you just then run kind of the normal code. Really kind of sophisticated. It was really really nice to see. I never really used it in my own world, but yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. It's just, I think it's complex and takes some time, but I think if you pull it off, I guess it pays back tenfold, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, and finding the time and energy is always the big human challenge, right? So as already mentioned, today, unfortunately, it's a bit of a shorter stream, so I'm already kind of giving the 10-minute warning. So in case there is some questions you have or some things you want to talk about, probably now's the time to already do it. And I will, in the meantime, um, check up here again what my editor does. But it's actually, I think, fine. I think that one problem was kind of solved. I probably should not even begin something else. Then I just break it. Um, yeah, I mean, that's kind of working. And this is separately. Yeah, okay. I'm happy. Yeah, yep. Let's see if this still works. Yeah, okay. Does. Okay, that's good. Good. Maybe one thing I could tackle is to close down the actual drop down. How could I do that in the best way? Current have a drop down menu item. I mean, this is fine. So if this is clicked, how do we do that? Drop downs active. Should we just clear all the drop downs? This is a very brutal way to do it, but it might work. I mean, let's just try it anyway. So in case we clicked on that, we will essentially clear all the active drop downs. Let's try that. Yeah. So you say, it seems up, but my new thing I want to do when I can is make a game which is just riddled with tests. Okay. Where I test every little thing and have integration tests, maybe even automation tests as well. I'm finding testing is the news that clean code for me. Yeah, I fully agree, and I fully support you in that. It's and you have my full respect. So if you really pull this off, I think the less the code is a typical more or less static input output black box scenario, right? I think exponentially the testing complexity grows. Like in pulling off a real successful and resilient test, and but that does not mean that it is no less like that you should not strive for it, right? I mean, you should, and you would get a lot out of it, but I have to admit that I think in the whole like real-time rendering universe, I feel it's like super not easy to do. That's why I kind of am not successful in doing it, and I try to kind of go steal my way a little bit around it, because in my kind of like normal developing professional day work, I have to write tests anyway, and so I do it there. But this is kind of like static code essentially, right? I mean, there is no real-time rendering and stuff like that, so it's yeah. Yeah. Especially coming back, right? I fully agree with that. Yeah. I mean, the nice thing that you kind of also mentioned now about tests, not only that they give you the certainty that it works because you can run it and it's kind of the proof that your assertion works here under that test condition, but it also, what I also used to say is a test is a wonderful documentation, right? About the code in action, how to exercise this code, how to use it. And it is a living documentation because it is a compiled documentation. It's code, it's compiled. If it does not compile, okay, well, there must be an error anyway. And it has the feature that it does the actual test. But I think it's also kind of what I do when I come to a new project, and also maybe if I come to my own, I can read the test also to just understand, okay, so that's how it's meant to be used, right? So this is how things are called, and probably in which sequence, and in which sequence you should better not call them because that's then a failing test or whatever. So yeah, I agree. And the mental budget is a very nice term. I think this is probably our most important currency, right? That we have as humans. Again, if we're the ones programming, because I think this is the kind of the most restricted one in a way. On the other hand, I mean, the human brain is a marvel anyway, but it costs so much energy, right? And if you do not, you have to spend so much time on thinking about some stupid bug like Compa did for 2 hours today, and because it makes you tired, and you could just use it on other features, right? Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, exactly. And especially if you share your code with other people. But I also would agree that I would say even if you are the one that revisits your own code after 1 or 2 months, because I think then it's just off the brain, just off our stack. Um, I think it's very quick. I think it kind of vanishes after whatever 5, 6, 7 days. I mean, you still, of course, you if you are the originator, you still have a good idea of what you did, but the details completely get lost and they are replaced by something else that you do in life. Um, and this is just it's kind of the best way of documentation. So, for example, I would totally prefer a test in terms of documentation than a comment, right? I also had a lot of discussions with colleagues about comments because some people say, well, the comments are very important, and I say the problems with comments is I say, and this is a little bit cheeky, but I say they are always out of date. They are always stale, and of course they are not always. I'm exaggerating, but there's a very very high danger that they are very subtly wrong, right? Because you wrote a comment, and I also write comments, and I write them also, of course, not always correct, but I don't try to overdo it, because the problem is if there is a comment and people read it and then people will happily cling to it, because if there is a comment and it gives a summary, then they will say, okay, yeah, so that's how it works. And sometimes it completely does not work that way because it's just out of date and nobody cared to actually or forgot to update the comment. Or it is very, and this is dangerous, it's very subtly wrong, because probably also the English or whatever language you write the comment in is probably not so precise as a programming language, and you just use a wrong word at the wrong place and it just still gives the wrong impression. So that's dangerous. But a test in comparison, just it's compiled code, right? I mean, if it compiles, at least it's formally right, and if the test is not failing, then it also runs within the boundaries of its expectations. So I think it's really also a good documentation tool, actually. Yeah. So probably, and there might be some tools that kind of create even, and now with AI, I can imagine that you probably just throw some thousands of lines of test code and it probably could even create you a nice documentation out of that. And I think that would be a good, much better quality, actually. So, yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. I think it's also, I mean, we also had this discussion, I think, about perfectionism and like being too angry with oneself. I think it's, you also should not set the bar too high. But I think it's absolutely good to strive for these values and to strive for, like, I must at least be able to read my freaking code in 2 months. That's kind of my, what I must do. But yeah, I mean, I must say in my journey also, I got better at that. I know what I understand. I have now a better feeling of how far I can kind of lean over the window in terms of sophistication, and I would still understand it, but that's why I try to kind of restrain myself a lot. So it's, and that's also what we can, I think, give as a as an advice to any young and aspiring developer who is at the beginning of his journey. And I also discussed it with Comp already. Just always try to do these super small baby steps, even if they sound stupid to you now, because now your brain is full in context, and this is why they look so simple. But if you go at the same program in 1 month, your context is empty, and what was super simple, like ridiculously simple back then 1 month ago, now is at least understandable. And so this is kind of the change of view, and you have to keep this in mind. So something that looks easy now, but it is actually sophisticated, or it looks sophisticated, it will be impossible to understand in 2 months. But if it's like so super easy that it's embarrassingly simple for you, I think that's the thing to strive for, because then you have a chance to still understand it in 2 months. Yeah. Yeah, and anyway, I think we have journeys and we have sub journeys, and I think part of the fun of developing, and also what I hear when people talk about art and when they learn drawing or when they learn an instrument, I think this kind of never stops, right? I think you can always get better, right? And maybe some of us, when we are developing games, maybe some of you are also playing games. I mean, I do, and I like the games a lot where you can essentially kind of grow infinitely in terms of like you can always get better, right? And it's probably never over. You just don't learn the game, and it's just done forever. I think very interesting are games where you can essentially grow all the time, and development is such a game, so to say, right? So it's yeah, that's what makes it interesting. Yeah, and I actually think this kind of makes a very good closing statement for today. So as I said, today will be a little bit of a shorter stream, but normally, if the bus doesn't hit me, normally I'll be online tomorrow again, probably around the same time, I guess. And I will also correct my schedule for tomorrow, so in case you can check. And yeah, I would very much like to welcome any of you again. And until then, see you and have a good time.